It's interesting day today. The sun is shining, and I'm going to do another intro for another show. Um, we're going to talk today about what digital agencies can do for you. In one of the talks, we talked about a company that provides like a shop for all the digital agencies that you can find there. But what actually one digital agency can do and what kind of work they can do. Is it a marketing? Is it a design? Uh, Especially when you think about it, when we're going to talk with Nico from Odaline Collective, that they would like to describe themselves by not describing just so simply, you do this, you do that. It's interesting in a way that you can actually see in the talk, and you can actually listen how they approach the content. They actually have something called content stack, like different kind of content for different kind of occasions or platforms. It's gonna be interesting. I hope you're gonna listen, and all the data and all, because they use data as well, like a lot in their work, and all the data, all the info about them will be posted, of course, in all the networks that we share this. So listen on, watch on, and click on to see what they're doing. Thank you. Hello. I'm like, this is new normal, or as I like to call it, normal. So we're recording right now. At least the application says we're recording, and we have interesting company here, Odaline, as you can see in the background, Odaline Collective. This is Nico. Nico Coombs is not the whole collective. He's only one part of 1/5, or at least on the web page. So like
1/5. That's right.
1/5, right? And hi, Nico. How are you?
Hi, how's it going? I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, when I saw what you're doing, and as this is like a startup rant podcast, we're ranting about startup stuff, and you're doing incredible things in kind of this digital marketing space. As we talked before, you're not like a general, kind of a company that's kind of a startup company. But we can see that you are working with startup companies. You actually you kind of a part of the startup community in a way, and you're a young company, you're starting up, so that's a startup connection there.
Right.
Like, can you give me a little tour for viewers and listeners right now, what you're actually doing? Because in the intro I said like what's said on web page, but that's like PR, so
right.
a little bit more.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'll give it a little
flavor.
meat.
Yeah, meat
right,
and flavor.
Exactly. Well, we're Odaline, as you said. We're an agency, and maybe in the agency world, you wouldn't call it a startup traditionally, but we have deep connections to the startup world because of our parent company, AdScanner, and I think we'll get to that in a little bit. But as Odaline, we work as a communications agency for clients, brands, big and small alike, and we do all kinds of stuff for them. That is interesting to their day-to-day work, and that can go from strategy, from understanding their data, from concepting creative ideas, all the way into producing those ideas, writing the media distribution plans for that, analyzing the results, and kind of drawing conclusions from that. So if you look at agencies, and obviously there are different types of agencies. You have creative agencies, you have digital agencies, you have social agencies, you have influencer agencies, media agencies. And oftentimes we get asked, hey, what of those are you? And our answer is, well, we can't really tell you because we're somewhere in between. And oftentimes we do a little bit of everything. And we're in the consulting business, I think, also, because we're really, our work follows our clients' problems and challenges. And that's really what we kind of do. And if we feel like, we can solve a challenge, or we can help find the right people to solve that challenge. And that maybe is the background of that Odaline Collective, because as you said, we're just 5 people, but we're also there to use our contacts, our network, to kind of find the right people for our clients and, get them together in the virtual team. And that's something, one of those let's call them specialized agencies oftentimes won't really do. I think you're still on mute. I can't hear you.
yeah, sorry, that's new normal right now, you know. Or like I said, I like to call it normal sometimes, because, you know, you forget to click the button, you know.
Right.
And this will not be edited out, because I'm really like try to explain to people, like, you know, if my kid is screaming in the background, that's because I'm working from
It's
home,
normal.
and you know.
If you were talking to Jan right now, he would have his daughter on his lap, most likely. So
yeah.
we hear all the time, so it's perfectly fine, I think.
Yeah, and like, you know, I got this kind of advice, like like, you know, if you're recording this, you should like really have, like, you know, this and that environment. And like I said, like, you know, I'm gonna talk with some people, and I'm gonna be in position that, you know, it's cool not to be in like in a, I don't know, suit and tie
Right.
and
I
whatnot.
mean, better done than perfect. You know, you can be the Croatian Joe Rogan, and Joe Rogan is not, you know, creating his videos, his interviews in a $50 million TV studio, but it's, you know,
Yeah.
it's rather simple and it works. It's all about the content, right?
Yeah, and we have the same haircut, you know, so, you know.
You do, yes. And he's ranting a lot as well, so that's
Yeah,
really fit.
yeah, and you know, and people like to say that, you know, Miroslav, you're always ranting about something, and right now I'm ranting about startups. But, you know, back to the topic, because people who are listening to this or watching this, that they would like to know, when you said like media and stuff like that. I'm sure that when you think about it, like. Um, in a world that, if you're just trying to start a company or whatnot, you're like, okay, if I need a huge marketing budget, I need this and I need that. And also, this is not like your first company that you're working with, right? That you created, maybe, like, when I say create, doesn't mean like you just started it could be creation as an employee or whatnot. That's what
Right.
I'm like to convey to people. Like, you can be a part of startup, not just being you know, co-founder, founder, or whatnot. You
Mm-hmm.
can be a crucial part of creation of the company, just by being there and providing your knowledge and whatnot.
Yeah.
um,
Shaping the company, yes.
yeah, and your experience, like your experience also, in this right now collective that you have here. How important media is today for startups, and relationships and representation of their work? Because startups usually start, if maybe they're bootstrapping, like we did, like my startup
Mm-hmm.
did. So you know, like, I wouldn't say you're stingy with money, but you have like prioritization. Like, if I need to invest in this and that, maybe it will go more to the technology, less to promotion, right? Is
Yeah.
media, big media or little media, only reserved for big corps, big companies? Um,
Yeah.
what would you say?
I wouldn't say so necessarily. I think the problem with the term media oftentimes is that it's just not as sexy as the creative part. You know, when you talk about creative and talk about, you know, creative campaigning, and for small startups, it's often guerrilla campaigning. How can we, you know, get campaigns out there with a low budget? They just have to be really cool and this and that. And that's true. And then when you talk about distributing it via media, it's just not, it just doesn't have the same flair to it as the creation part. And I think that leads to oftentimes media being underevaluated, because, and you might have seen that conversation on our LinkedIn channel a few days ago.
Yeah.
In the end, a great idea is only great if enough people see it. You know, in the advertising world, we often joke that, you know, there's award-winning ideas that have won 2, 3 Cannes Lions, and they've only been seen by 40,000 people because 99% of the budget went into creating the idea and the assets, and no money went into distributing it. Because, as you know, it's getting more and more difficult nowadays to, you know, have virality, meaning getting organic distribution of content. And that happens, you know, that happens once in a while. I wouldn't say it doesn't happen anymore. But most of the time, you just need a media push behind it. And that to us just means that you have to have the the right balance between the two. If you only have a budget of 30,000 euros to communicate, you shouldn't spend 20,000 euros on creating your creative. You should see how you can create with, you know, just parts of that budget and put the rest into media, or working with PR. That could also be a different point. There's many different ways, of course, to spread a message. So back to your question, because now I kind of went astray a little bit from that. I think, of course, it's more important for big companies, because if you have millions of euros and dollars to spend on media, you can buy it way more efficiently, and obviously you have different choices. And the choice that you make as a startup with a little budget are tougher, I would think, and you might even need some deeper knowledge in a lot of things. What is the most efficient media channel for you to choose and to put all your budget? But I still think it's very important, and it's often undervalued.
I was just trying to remember right now. I like this new normal. I really love it. Sorry for interrupting this, because I couldn't remember the book. It was called growth hacking, something about a raw something, and I just tried to Google it in the end, because what you said right now, you know, this budget and what you do with the budget, and even your company, it's like your content stack. You're trying to, you know, produce and manage array of different stuff there, right? And it's kind of growth hacking. You know, you just can, like, give me an image of somebody sitting on the bench and put a Bernie Sanders right now, or Keanu Reeves before, you know, and you get, like, I don't know, huge reach with that. And maybe the guy who is sitting is your CEO eating something that you are selling, or reading a book that you are selling, you know, and that's it. And I like what you said right now in the end, like that there you said, like, you know, don't spend, you know, if you have that kind of money, don't spend like 90% of it on creating something, and then only 10 on spreading the news, let's say it like that. Love that. Would you say that growth hacking is in the DNA of your company, that with the data that you're working with, that what you are doing for your customers and stuff like that, it's kind of a, you know, let's see what is the best for you know, to do with what we have?
Right. I'd say yes, because what we're trying to achieve really is a shift in mindset from, you know, the old advertising and communications days, where you would have one creative and you would put it everywhere. It would probably be your 30-second TV spot, and that would run all over the place. Kind of one size fits all, as they would call it. And really those days are over, and you mentioned our content stack, which I thank you for, because that's kind of the term we're trying to implement there, which for us means having creative that is really made for the platform where it's distributed. And that doesn't mean that you have a 60-second TV commercial and you cut it down to 30 seconds and you play it on YouTube. It might mean that it has to look completely different. Like if you communicate an idea on TV, it has to look different on Instagram, it has to look different on TikTok, it has to look different on the billboard, right? And it's very important, I think, that you kind of cascade it down into that. And why I think that's a growth hack also is because that lets you test assets against each other. You know, in the old days, there would be a creative agency, they would give you 3 different routes of a story. Then they have the creative director sit there, then the brand boss would sit there and say, yes, route number 2 is the best. So essentially it was 2 people deciding on what creative is the best, and then they would throw it out there. And there's no hypothesis there. It's just, it has to be that asset because it's the only one they have. And nowadays, you know, if you have an asset, you have an idea, and you put it into 10 assets that are different from each other, and you let the data decide, you let A/B testing decide what creative is actually the best. I think that's a simple growth hack, just changing the mindset from having one creative to having many, and not being the one to decide it, because of course creativity is subjective, right? But data is not. Data is objective. So the learning from data in that setup is really important.
And I just love that, because, you know, if I right now would like put your image and my image, or like we are doing this, because, you know, the startup Rant will have, like, and like images all over the place, and I hope that I will create interesting incentive for people to click on it, to go
Right.
here and watch this. But if I just like go for TikTok and put this image, I don't think this will like be interesting for anybody there. But if you like
Right.
put this part that you mentioned TikTok, if I just pull this part like for 15-10 seconds, somebody will say, what are they talking about? Let's see what are they talking about, and I actually can test that because I will see how many people came or not came from the data there.
Yeah.
And that's like this kind of and I like that kind of a content stack, because when you like stacking, like you can have one idea, like one general idea, and you stack content that's representing that idea, but it's different for, like you said, different platforms, different people, whatnot. It's really interesting to me to.
And I think the beauty is that you get less reliant on one piece of content. If you have 1,000 pieces of content, the importance of every single piece is smaller. So it doesn't matter in the end if you chose for the person in your content to wear a blue sweater like I'm wearing now, because if you have them wear 3 different colors, maybe, and one color is working better, it's just not important that you make that one choice at one point.
Yeah, I like, when you look like movie, because I'm a movie buff, when you look at movies like Devil Wears a Prada or whatnot, there's like, okay, so there's like 1,000 pictures of clothes or whatnot, and you need, as an editor, choose one, because that one will be in the magazine, right?
You're mentioning such a great point, because I've worked for fashion companies in the past, and you have these shootings, as you're saying, and there is like 1,000 pictures that great photographer has taken, and people have to sit down and they have to choose like 1 or 2 images. And I've always wondered, like, why? Like, if it's print campaign, of course, there can only be 1 image in there. I get that. But on digital, it does not make any sense whatsoever. Like, why don't you just take, you can't take 1,000 of them because you have to do something to them. You have to post-produce them. Of course, that takes resources. Yeah. I get that. But take 20, take 30, and test them against each other. Like, why do we have to decide that the model's face looks better this way than that way? Let the audience decide. I think it's a much better way.
And imagine this: if you're a startup in the space of I don't know, food producing, agri-tech or whatnot, or maybe even shoes, because there are startups doing all kind of stuff. And right now they can actually say, okay, I have money for a big budget, like on a billboard, but before that, I'm just gonna take 20 images of this, put it on all my digital space. Somebody will say, oh, there's 1,000 likes on this image, but there is only 60 on this one. I think I know which one I'm gonna print, man.
Yeah, and I mean, this is not an idea that is completely new. I mean, back in the 70s, 80s, you would have these focus groups where you would have 14, 15 different consumers watching a TV spot, and then there would be people behind the wall, kind of listening to their opinions and changing their creative up. So this is nothing new. This is something that's been around forever. But I think it's been forgotten in many parts of the industry. So, I'm totally with you. That's the way to go.
Yeah, like I, as a movie buff, I know that there's like this kind of screenings of movies before they actually go out. And then there was like famous movies like they will show comedies or whatnot. They will show to the people, and people would not laugh, they will not react, or they will like be confused by the story, and then they will change the whole narrative and reshoot some part of the movies, even the parts like the famous movies Back to the Future. The actor was completely changed after a few screenings tests. Right. So this is interesting because people, I don't think that people like think of in this kind of terms, especially when they're like little startup. And right now, with all these digital advancements, they can actually test so much before they actually go out with something, right? And that's cool. That's really cool. But I'm going to drive this conversation a little bit further from this, because we're gonna like rant on this like for ages. But I want to just say that, I really like your company posts, because it's still connected with what you post there. Because I like you post those kind of which app right now is most downloaded.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
you really handle that data cool, because right now I know I was reading about, I don't know, Clubhouse, right? And it was like, oh man, I don't know, audio recording, I don't know. But after I saw your post recently that it was like the second or the first downloaded
Yeah.
app,
Number two last week.
yeah, and I
Number
was
one
like,
last week. Number two this week, I think.
and actually, maybe I'm ashamed to say this, but I'm not ashamed to say this, but I was like, I need to install this. Although I saw people trying to get me there, like, you should come to this group. I was like, I don't know, voice messages. Man, I'm hard to get to type something, let alone to record something. So I need to see how that works. Yada yada yada. But I'm already 3 years on Vero social media, which is bought by Clash right now, this time of period, which is like, Vero true social media. I don't know, are you aware of that?
Mm-hmm.
But it's like big company, and it's like, you know like, no, Byte, sorry, Byte, not Vero, but Vero
Or
is like Facebook.
Byte, I remember that.
But
Yeah.
Byte was right now, like, uh, I would say, prodigy of Vibe, which is like dead almost for a few years. But
Yeah.
back to the point, I wanted to say, like, oh, I need to see this Clubhouse. Maybe I really need to download this, because Odaline said they're like second downloaded page. So you really handle this data from where it's coming, to show what people, what brands, what companies could use for their benefit. How do you do that? How do you actually do that? How do you check what do you just go,
Yeah.
see how many people downloaded this on Google Play, or?
Yeah, maybe to kind of tell you how we approach this kind of thing. And obviously said that this is something that we post on LinkedIn once a week. And for us, it's important to be present on LinkedIn with a lot of content. So our strategy is to have reoccurring formats, obviously. So we always keep an eye out for what can be reoccurring, what is interesting week to week, because there's new input. And there's so much data out there that is obviously not our data, but it's easy for anyone to connect. And the simple secret for the rankings, and they're the Apple App Store rankings in Germany, is the Apple App Store, and they have their rankings, and we check it every Monday, and we just put it in a form that is nice visually, that tells the viewer exactly what we try to tell them. We make it easy for them to understand data, and I think that's something that we've learned in our jobs for the past years, because we all come from media agencies, and we've learned to visualize data and really get the most important parts of that data out there in that visual, because that's all in management presentations that you need. Nobody cares about a million data points there. You just need the 2 or 3 that are most important, and you need to tell them why they're important. And that app ranking is just an example of that. And going closer into that, we just feel like it gives you, as you just said, a great insight into trends. You can kind of check if the trends that you're feeling in your bubble, like Clubhouse, when it started, it was only the marketing bubble. And I was like, well, I know that like everyone on my LinkedIn is on Clubhouse, but none of my friends had ever heard of it. So I was really looking forward to Monday to see whether it would show up on the App Store charts, because when it showed up on number 1, I knew it was not only my bubble, but it was large enough to beat every single other app in downloads that week, meaning it beats Instagram, beating Facebook, WhatsApp, TikTok, all the giants that will be on in the top 5 usually. So it's a big deal. So it really gives you a good grab on what the trends are.
I need to call Clubhouse, because I can sponsor this episode.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
I'm gonna use your data, man. I'm gonna use your data.
This one, maybe I think that's the most important part, because how is this relevant to startups? And
yeah,
I give these LinkedIn seminars, and they're about personal branding, company branding, and oftentimes the difficult part for startups, for companies of any size, is that they don't have enough content, and that's never the right answer. I think you just have to know where to look for content and make it easy enough on yourself. And that doesn't mean that you have to have your own panel and have to have your own data. I don't need to go outside and ask 1,000 people. There's always ways around that. with publicly available information that you just curate into something for your audience to better understand. Because if it's not curated, it's not out there. It's kind of like being a news company. The news are out there, things happen, but the newspapers and news companies turn it into something, turn it into a form that is understandable for the audience. And that's kind of what you need to do on platforms like LinkedIn. You think more like a publisher and act that way.
And then just like how you say, you don't have to go outside and do this kind of 1,000 people ask 1,000 people, because those are like you said, focus groups are from the old days, right? The new days right now is the social media, social networking, or whatnot. Right. Just like that. And I know that Croatia, it's a small country, but we have like huge names hailing from here, from Nikola Tesla and Mate Rimac, and this year, like actually last year, 2020, it was the bad year for everybody. But for Croatian startups, it actually was interesting and good. Sorry. Because there was some interest in Croatian startups and some money pouring here from outside investors. But you're part of Croatian family as well, aren't you?
Right, right, yes. And we said that in the beginning. Our parent company, AdScanner, was founded by my partner Marin and his brother Christian a few years ago. And I know you've known them, you've crossed paths with them in Zagreb. And they have a big group of amazing people working on AdScanner in Zagreb. So we have strong ties there. And usually the last year when we founded Odaline, the plan was to be in Zagreb, 6-7 times a year, to really stay close to them, enjoy the city, enjoy Croatia, and get the companies close together. And obviously that really didn't happen that much because of COVID. But we did manage to go before COVID last year in February. I got to see the AdScanner office, everything, meet everybody, and we do have regular calls, of course. So yeah, I'm very close to that scene, and I'm looking forward to the times when we can go again, because I really enjoyed it. And it's so many terrible things happened. Of course, I heard about all the earthquakes and how everybody was affected by that. So really big shout out to everybody there. I hope it gets better for you guys next year.
And this is like right now maybe a problem here in Croatia, especially in Zagreb and the Zagreb area, because people are hit not just by COVID, by earthquakes, which didn't happen for like this big, like for last 150 years. And many startups, many people who are already stressed out with the companies and work that they do were like more on the edge with everything that's happening and maybe losing faith in what they're doing. And it's interesting for me to talk right now with you because it shows that you're based in Germany. Your whole life is there, actually, right? And right. You're actually working with the Croatian companies, showing that Croatian companies can partner, can grow, can create stuff together.
For sure.
And we're not just like isolated right now in our little bubble. Like you said, your bubble of marketing now expanded on the bubble of your friends and everybody, because somebody started using or he heard about application that only it was in this bubble. So I'm just trying to explain to people around me is like, this is not, I wouldn't say the end, but it's not the border. It's not anything, because
for sure
this new normal, whatnot, it's actually, you can talk with people in Japan, you can talk to people in Germany, in USA, and even now, contradictory to everything, we are maybe more liberated, maybe more free as startups to talk with all those companies, because now they are accepting these kind of calls.
Yeah, and I mean, you never know. Sorry to interrupt there, but you never know how where those connections could take you. Like, take the two of us, for example. We've been connected on LinkedIn for a while.
Yeah.
And we just we profit from each other's content. You kind of get to see a different world. You get different input. And I like that. It's very important. Oftentimes you sit on LinkedIn, you get a contract request, you think like, well, that's a country that is not relevant for me. But I never approach it that way. I always approach it the way that, there might be some input that would bring me, that I could bring to the other side, that can be important. So it's just a beautiful time to network, and I don't think national borders should play a role there. And that's just in addition to the obvious Croatian connections that we have as a company. But I think, just in our case, we've profited from it, and it's really cool to do it.
Yeah, and it's like I sometimes I get like connections from India or Africa, and I was like, yeah, man, I'm going to click on this because I'm thinking about stuff that maybe people do not think in a way, like fintech. Like
Yeah,
fintech in Africa right now is huge on mobile, right? We have companies in Croatia, actually, Infobip and all these kind of companies that are huge in kind of a web communication and whatnot. They're working in these kind of countries. I'm gonna do quote unquote because to me there is no like, especially right now when internet here, right? No, the people in Africa. Yeah, people in Africa, man, they're using GSM based connections, and people who don't have access to banks are using maybe better than my mother is using bank on mobile, right?
right.
Because she can go like 2 streets there and there is a bank, but they cannot do that maybe, but they're
Yeah.
using like banking, like huge banking resources there. I just love that. I wanted to mention something that Odaline Collective, that you guys did. I'm gonna be honest, and I say I couldn't watch everything because it was in German, some parts of it.
Yeah.
But it's a 10-minute inspiration sessions which I really liked, and I tried to at least read the description of some of them, and people were there who were guests and something like that. It's amazing. So, what was the point of it? Because if you're a media agency, you're a marketing agency, or you're a whatnot agency, why to go that little extra effort?
Yeah, very good question. It kind of relates to something that I said earlier. The format you're mentioning is a LinkedIn format, a YouTube format also. We've embedded it on our website as well. We're always looking for ways to increase our company branding, because of course we're not an agency that's 20 years old and have 1,000 employees and everybody knows them. But we kind of rely on a network, and we kind of rely on the view that we can build. And obviously we don't have the funds to have our own big media campaigns. So this is just a way we do brand building, to be honest. And the idea of those 10-minute inspiration sessions called Odaline 10s were that we got exciting thought leaders from the industry. For example, we had Tino Krause, who is the German general manager for Facebook. We had Catherine Gaudry, who is part of the management of Scholz and Friends, one of the biggest agency groups or agencies here in Germany. Really inspiring work she's doing over there. Tons of different people. You can look it up on our website. And we just kind of put it into a snackable format because, oftentimes I'm glad if people listen to our whole talk here now, but in our usual work schedule, sometimes people only have 10 minutes. So we kind of try to fit everything in those 10 minutes and really have a shoot around, quick answers. And we've gotten really nice feedback on that. It's really cool to talk to all these people to get their thoughts. And we've really enjoyed that. And it's kind of also what we're doing on Clubhouse now. And you've mentioned that ever since Clubhouse has been starting to hype in Germany a few weeks ago, it's become a place where we hold our own talks. And we're actually having another one tonight, by the way. It's going to be too late for our listeners to check out, but we're doing it there as well. We're inviting people to talk to. We're asking them the questions. We're just trying to become the publisher, as I said earlier. And I think that holds true for any type of company. It's not only agencies, it can be any company. If you become the publisher, you can build your brand.
And that's amazing because I'm gonna be like a little bit honest here because I'm an honest guy and candid guy, and people sometimes don't like that. Because I'm gonna say this, I didn't start this like podcast just for the people and just for the companies that and people who are gonna be guests here. But actually,
Right.
I go to drive with public transportation, right? And whenever I'm there, I'm listening to something. It's like usually 40 minutes. And if there is a podcast that's longer than that, I usually, okay, I'm listening that a little later. So I like those 10 minutes, and I'm always on the LinkedIn. So, it was like this kind of a that you can like, oh, I'm just gonna take time for coffee and I'm gonna listen to this, and it's
Yeah.
yeah, okay, I'm gonna, yeah, you know, and it's cool because I think that, you know, I hate those people that saying like, you know, people today have a short span. Yeah, they do. They have short span on listening and trying to learn something new, but some of them don't. And if you just go for those, like, you know, that just 10 seconds, well, they're on a TikTok anyhow. I've been there. I was watching some
Yeah.
content there, and it doesn't appeal me that much because, you know, it's not my cup of tea, as somebody would say, you know. But you know, I will check. But
And
still, I
in
will
the
check
end,
some. You know,
yeah, in the end, Milo, this goes back to what we talked about in the beginning, the content stack. I mean,
exactly.
there's no rule that what we're doing right now only has to be a video cast or a podcast of 45 minutes, but you know, let's turn it into visuals that have just one quote on it. And that's always the thought process that we're trying to implement, is that, you know, out of this much video content, you can make 1,000 pieces of other content. And I think if you implement that, you know, that kind of thinking, it really helps you in the long run to create creative at scale.
Yeah, I'm gonna quote this. I'm gonna take this quote and your image, and I'm gonna post this
There you go.
as an invitation for people to come to watch this episode. Because not
Right.
just this episode, but any episode, because you know this relates to so much. Because you know, when you think about it, we are here to give value to people, and this is like what you said right now. Like from this one call that we have right now, we can create so much. I hope I will have time to do that.
Yeah, that's
So
always, resources are always the problem.
yeah, you know, it's time. It's not, you know, like right now when you look at it, I'm just like, I'm gonna rant a bit. When you look at it, you have this kind of amazing companies that are providing you with amazing tools like Canva, like, well, I would like go backtrack and I would just say, you know, you have Paint. You know, you have Paint. If you don't have money
Yeah,
for you
right.
know, you can use this in Paint. Just
You have
doing this.
PowerPoint.
Yeah, you
You
know
can do
what
anything in PowerPoint.
what everything you want, you know, but the time is always the problem, you know, you have to do that. But people have to, you know, focus and do that if they want to. I saw some stuff on your webpage, like the company that you did, kind of campaigns for them. Do you think that, I don't know, you know, startups should wait? We did mention this a little bit before, but do you think the startups should wait till they like are perfectly done with what they are doing? Because some startups are like in this tech space and they are not even, they're like stealth startups not doing anything, trying to communicate to the world what they're doing, or they're waiting till they have like enough content. I know that you mentioned like don't wait till you know you can do it with the content that you have, uh, but do you think that too many people right now are seeking for perfection instead to just try to work what they have?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I'd agree to that. And as a basketball fan, I'd say trust the process. Like they do up in Philadelphia. I don't know if it's worked this year, but why not use that process that you have been describing and use that as your content? Because as you know, from my experience in
Yeah.
brand building, a brand is never finished. A brand is always evolving. So even if you internally as a team are working to a point where, you know, well, in June, our technology is going to be done, our offer is going to be done, we know what our brand's going to be, it's going to be there in June. Well, in June, you're going to have different thoughts about how you want to develop your brand. And from that standpoint, there's never going to be that one second where you feel like, well, this is it. We can communicate this and nothing else ever. So I just say, go for it now. There's really no reason to wait. Better done than perfect.
And I just love this because even Burger King this year changed his logo or whatnot.
Right.
It's
They
a
all
company.
do. They all do.
It's a company here for, you know. And I was I think I like a few days ago or a month ago I was mentioning something about Coca-Cola and Pepsi, how they changed their brand all the time. If you look at it in the short span, but in the years that they are so long here that they did it, so you don't even see it in that kind of a way, right? Nico, do you have any final thoughts to say to the young entrepreneurs? When I say young entrepreneurs, I say that with the not young in the age, but with the young in their heart to start something of their own, because we are old as we are old, and some other people are old as they are old, but entrepreneur spirit can burn in us all. So you started this as an Odaline Collective, as a right now, but you also worked before in the other companies, and who knows what happened with me or you in the future. But there are people who are maybe now considering starting something of their own. What would you say to them?
Yeah, that's an awesome question, and maybe a personal story on that. If you would have asked me 3-4 years ago if I thought of myself as an entrepreneur, my answer would have been 100% no. And I don't know if my answer would be 100% yes today. And I never would have thought that I would be co-founder of a company, of an agency. And I think this just has told me that if you surround yourself with the right people that kind of bring skills to the table that are different from your own skill set, that can make the dream work as well. I've learned that almost nothing can be achieved by yourself. You always have to surround yourself with the right people, and it's very important to really think back, find out what your strengths are, but also know what you can't do, and then kind of get together with the people that kind of give you things that you don't have, and that really has worked for me well. And it's also been important that I never said never. I went into the spaces that felt right, and that can also mean you try something that won't work, and then you start something else after that. So I don't think it's only people that feel like, yes, I'm an entrepreneur, I've been that all my life, and that's all I'm ever going to be. It's not only them, but it's everybody else if they find the right people to work with. And I think it's just important to be open-minded about it.
Beautifully said. I like that, because that's the core of it. It's something nice. I like it. Nico, thank you for this call. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. Thank you for sharing what your company does and your connection with Croatia and with the startup world as well, and what you did, and this is even personal story right now, because it's always cool to hear somebody says no, I wasn't thinking about doing this, because
Right.
usually in the media, oh yeah, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm Jeff Bezos, I've been doing this from 1999 from garage,
Right.
but 1999, that was a long time ago. Who knows what will be in 25 years from now or 30 years from now. Thank you for being guest here.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me. I had a lot of fun.
Thank you. Bye.